We had a great Hungarian Grand Prix this past weekend. Lando Norris gets the win, followed by Oscar Piastri in second, George Russell in third, and then Charles Leclerc, who started on pole, finishing in fourth. This race was definitely a lot better than the Belgian Grand Prix, I can tell you that. We had uh, multiple lead changes, and we actually had some interesting strategy. First of all, strategy. Lando Norris, he decided to do a one stop compared to the three guys behind him who all did two stops. Norris went from new mediums to used hards and took those to the end. Meanwhile, Piastri did the exact same thing. However, he did it earlier, which means he had to shift on the new hards at the end. While Russell and Leclerc both started on new mediums and then both changed to new hards and changed to new hards again. Norris won the race because of that. He was able to nurse those tires to do a one stop. That saved him enough time, especially given that the gap was 6/10 of a second. I was actually it's pretty close to 7/10. It was 0.698. So I mean that one stop is what won Lando the race. He's able to close the gap down to 9 points heading into the summer break, which I mean there weren't fireworks like I said, but as another correct prediction for a race weekend, we have 10 races left here after the summer break. Anything can happen with 9 points being the gap. We are definitely on track for some excitement here at the end of the season. With the last four races coming out of the crash in Canada, Lando has won three of four, with the only difference he came second in Belgium while Oscar won. So kind of flipping the script from early in the season where it was Oscar consistently winning those races. But as I said, anything can happen here at the summer break. I don't know how many upgrades we'll see given that it's the last summer break before the regulation change. I know we talked about it a bunch, but this is focusing more technically. I'd say we're going to see less, given that I don't know how many teams are willing to develop that much for 10 races, only to essentially kick those parts to the curb once the season ends. So who knows? I don't know if we'll see that big of a shakeup, but we'll see with that. But I mean, the main story of this race, Charles Leclerc started on pole and ends up finishing in fourth. I have his radio message right behind me, right here. Let me give you the full quote here now. Let me pull it up. This is so incredibly frustrating. We've lost all competitiveness. You just have to listen to me. I would have found a different way of managing those issues. Now it's just undrivable. Undrivable. It's a miracle if we finish on the podium. And he was not wrong as he ends up finishing in fourth. He does get a 5 second time penalty, which had no impact on his finishing position. So he ends up finishing 42.5 seconds back off of Lando, which, given that he was in the lead on lap 39 before he pit, or no, I don't know if he pit or he was in he was in the lead on lap 39 for uh, Piastri overtook him, and I think after that is when he pit as he dropped down to fourth. Yeah, he pit I think lap 40 after Piastri overtook him. So yeah, after lap 39, it was a horror show from what I've heard. His lap 40s when he got chassis damage, which is what killed his race. And that shows lap 40s when Piastri overtook him. Leclerc then pit, he dropped to fourth, jumps back up into second, and then after lap 50, it was just downhill from there. He ends up finishing in fourth after Russell overtakes him on lap 62. But on a more positive note, let's shift to Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Aston Martin's finishing in double points, fifth and seventh for Alonso and Stroll respectively, coming after a horrific weekend in Belgium. As Aiden said on the past episode, they were our biggest, he was his biggest loser for the weekend. So, I mean, they show that they can rebound, which I was not expecting that. Uh, Alonso starts fifth and finishes fifth. Stroll, it does start sixth. He drops down to seventh, flipping it for Leto. But this was a great track for Aston Martin. Shocked me, shocked a lot of people from what I've seen. And it's it's definitely good for team morale, I'd say, being able to score those points. Let's check in on the constructor standings. They overtook Sauber with that double points. They're now at 52. Sauber's at 51 with Bortoleto in sixth. I mean, I've probably said this every week. The fact that the Sauber is actually competitive, at least with one of the cars, it's still insane to me, given where they were last year. This week, Hulkenberg in 13th. He did get lapped, but he started in 18th after a rough qualifying, so he showed some nice pace. And then Bortoleto starts seventh, finishes sixth. He was a minute off of Lando, a minute and six, but that is 8 points for him. He's now after points finishes in three of the last four races, scoring his first points in Austria, retiring at Silverstone, and points in Belgium and Hungary. It is only 14 points, but that actually puts him ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, which, gee, oh my God, that's insane. That I knew he wasn't driving well, but that's genuinely shocking looking at it like this. Tsunoda kind of did the same thing. He scored his first points of the year in Bahrain, then and that was big because I think that was his second race in the Rebel car. He then retired in Saudi Arabia, points in the sprint and in the race in Miami, and then points at Imola. He has not scored points since. He's at 10 points. He's in 18th in the standings. He's now been overtaken by Bortoleto. Actually, another guy I want to bring up who is struggling, we haven't really talked about, Oliver Behrman. I was really high on him coming into the season, given his performance, just slotting into the cars last season, which I think was for the Ferrari in Saudi Arabia, where he finished in seventh, and the Haas in Baku, where he finished in 10th. So and then he also did the same thing again in Sao Paulo. But I mean, he got 7 points last year. I was really high on him coming into the year. So when he scored those early points, I was thinking it was just going to be more of the same from him. However, he was the 13th in Saudi Arabia. He retired in Miami, 17th in Imola, and then he went 12th at Monaco, 17th again in Spain. And he's had those four straight 11th place finishes. He did score points in the uh, Belgian sprint race, yeah, but he did retire in Hungary. So, I mean, you kind of raise the alarm when it comes to Fairman and Sonoda, given that their performance has just fallen off of a cliff after Bahrain for Behrman and um, Imola for Sonoda, which is it is genuinely shocking that Sonoda's only been able to get 3 points finishes out of that second Red Bull car. But we've talked about that in depth on the show, so I'm not going to get super deep into that. So if you want to see us talk more about that, I think we talked about it in the last episode. So if you guys want to go check that out, you can hear me talk more about that on there. More trends I'd like to point out. Science has not scored any points since Canada. Once again, that's shocking given that Albon's currently in eighth. He he's done that with three straight retirements in Spain, Canada, and Austria, which without those he'd probably be ahead of Antonelli, who does score his first points since Canada. We brought that up on the show, so congrats to him on scoring his first points since June 15th. It's been about a month and a half since he scored his last points, so congrats to Kimmy. Hopefully that gets him back on the right track after his hot start to the season, where he scored points in five of the first six races, including two sprint points finishes as well. Um, More trends. Max Verstappen finishes ninth. His barring his retirement in Austria, that's his lowest finish in Spain, where he finished in 10th. So he didn't really capitalize off of that sprint. Um, the sprint win in Belgium. He did not get penalized. I know they investigated that after the race, which is why I waited until Monday, which is why I'm recording this, to start talking. So no further investigation with that. Uh, Russell first podium since Canada. Leclerc, he got I mean, Ferrari once again, you can't help but feel bad for him. That pole was awesome because his first pole of the year. Um, Actually, I do want to bring up Lewis. He finished 12th. He had a ghastly qualifying. It was not good. He remember after the race he said that it was him. But then you gotta wonder, does the team? I mean, in qualifying, it's definitely I'd say it definitely puts a lot of pressure on the driver. But you do have to wonder how much has the team impacted him over the course of the season. For Lewis, over the course of the season, he's this is his first finish outside the points. Um, barring other than, but he got disqualified in China along with Leclerc. He did have the sprint win back in China, so I wonder how much has the team impacted the two of them. I think it's probably close to just doing some rough math in my head. I gotta see where they finished in China before they were disqualified. Um, Leclerc was fifth, Hamilton was sixth. So doing the math, that's at least. I'm gonna just estimate a few other things. That's probably at least 25 points between the two that the team has lost them. Hopefully Lewis bounces back. Uh, Leclerc has shown pace. He only had three races off the podium since Monaco. So Ferrari's definitely a mixed bag. You can flip a coin and see what happens with them. So a rough weekend for Ferrari. It's you kind of expect at this point there's gonna be at least one weekend like this every once in a while for Ferrari. Keyword is Ferrari. I don't really expect this from any other team, but who knows what we'll get with them after the summer break. If I'm Ferrari, you just gotta get the guys to calm themselves back down. You gotta regroup as a team and charge forward because currently they are second in the constructors still. Obviously, that first place is they aren't winning the constructors this year. That's McLaren and McLaren only. They're at 559 points. That's 299 points, I think. Let me do my math. Yeah, 299 point gap between McLaren and Ferrari for the constructors. And they are currently 24 ahead of Mercedes for that second place. So if I'm Ferrari, get the drivers to just get back into the right headspace, regroup as a team, charge forward for that second place in the constructors. So we'll see what happens with that with the Dutch Grand Prix. Yeah, this year and next year for the Dutch Grand Prix next year is a sprint weekend, and after that it is sadly off the calendar. It's always been a track that I've enjoyed, so sad to see it go, but we got one more season of it. So we'll save the we'll save that more for next year. Anything else that I want to bring up? Alonso has scored points in five of the last six races after his retirement in Monaco. I'm actually shocked we didn't notice that and bring it up on one of the full episodes. He did finish 17th in Belgium, but as I said, that was a horrific weekend for the team. So Aston Martin, or more so Fernando Alonso, has shown good pace recently. Fifth place at Hungary is his highest points finish of the year. He is tied with Lance Stroll now. Lance Stroll finished sixth in Australia, ninth in China, and then didn't score again until Silverstone, where he finished seventh, just like he did at Hungary this weekend. So they are both tied at 26 points. Alonso gets 11th place on countback with the fifth place. So I'd say keep an eye out for Alonso and Stroll to get some good points finishes here after the summer break. That's something I mean, at least for Fernando, he's after that retirement in Monaco lit a fire under him because he has completely flipped his season trajectory with that. Esteban Ocon has not scored points since Austria. It's a three. He did score points in the sprint at Belgium, but he's not had a top 10 finish in the main race since June 29th in Austria. Um, Another trend, Hajar, other than his 1 point in the sprint at Belgium, he hasn't scored a point since Spain. 7 points. That was the 1st of June. So he's been on a long points drought. And I mean, I already brought up science. Other than that, Cole Pinto, 18th, still get to score a point. We talked about Alpine on this last episode, so if you want to see us get more depth on that, well, you can go watch that. Who knows what's up with that Alpine second seat? It's been atrocious all year for them. Is it a Flavio thing? Is it a car thing? I mean, I mean, at least at Hungary, it feels like a car thing, given that Gasly finished 19th, but he's been able to get 20 points out of this car, and he's ahead of Lawson on countback with a seventh place finish. So he's currently in 14th. Who knows with that? Anything else? Driver of the day was Bortoleto. Deserves it. As I said, he's turned on the Jets recently with the way he's driven three of the last four races and points finishes. Antonelli goes from 15th to 10th to score a point, and that's really about it. Uh, Gasly did finish 17th, but he got a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision, which is why he finished 19th. Behrman retires due to an under tray issue. And this is McLaren's 200th race win. Congratulations to them. They've, as I talked about in this last episode, going from Bahrain in 23, finishing 19th, 20th, to now being the cream of the crop when it comes to the car. It's amazing. It's actually insane how they've turned it around and they've now reached 200 wins. Reminds me of the old school McLaren. They had the two fastest pit stops of the race, 1.94, both for one for Norris, one for Piastri. I think that's the new fastest of the season. Uh, Red Bull also had a stop under 2 seconds for Sonoda at 1.97. But yeah, there's 1.94 is now the season fastest. So very cool that we're starting to see those pit stops speed up. I remember we had the rule change. I can't remember when, but uh, we thought that pit stops were not going to be able to go under 2 seconds with I think it was the manual, like green light. So very cool there. This is the first time Lewis Hamilton has finished the Hungarian Grand Prix outside of the points. He's had a points finish every year except for 2010 where he DNF'd, and then this year. So as I said, who knows what's up with Ferrari? Uh, but yeah, no, as I said on the show, my prediction was Lando Norris. I said he's gonna have given the fact that he lost in Belgium, he had tire spin coming out of the first corner, lost position to Piastri, and then the rest was history with that race. Last year, he had to give up the win to Piastri in Hungary, so I was like, he wants to get that win back. And evidently, that's what happened. He was aggressive with the one stop. He was able to really stretch those tires, and the risk paid off because, as I said at the beginning of this, 6 tenths. The only way he gets those 6 tenths is if he doesn't stop again. And I mean, it's genuinely, it was a beautiful drive by him to keep the tires alive and only be able to stop once. This was the closest winning margin of a green flag uh, finish in 2025, 0.698. McLaren's fourth consecutive 1-2 finish since, and all those follow the crash in Canada, second time in history for that. They're the second team to win 200 Grand Prix. McLaren, McLaren's best track is one of the best tracks for them is the Hungarian. It's their 13th win there. Um, yeah, anything else big stats wise? Uh, Another year for the pole sitter failing to win Hungary, 5 years in a row. Leclerc only led 20 laps before this race. He ends up leading the first 19 plus laps 31 through 39. So he leads 28 laps. And then, yeah. And Borletto's P6 was Sauber's best result at the Hungaroring since Nick Heidfeld finished third in 2007 up on the podium in the BMW Sauber, which that was such a fun team. I've read about them. Obviously, too young to watch them, but very cool to see that Sauber is kind of back on track. with points finishes. So yeah, that's really it. We got the summer break now. Dutch Grand Prix coming up afterwards. We'll probably talk about that on the show a little closer to the start. Um, no changes in the top five of the World Drivers' Championship. The gap is 9 points for the between Piastri and Norris. And then really the only other close thing is Russell and Verstappen. Verstappen leads by I think 15 points. Yep, 15 points. And then it's kind of an island for Leclerc and an island for Hamilton. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't know when the next episode of Good Times and Finish Lines will be. It'll either be next week or the week after. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.